Me. Good morning, good afternoon, good afternoon. Look at your neighbor, say, neighbor, God uses broken pieces. Look at your other neighbor, say, neighbor, God uses broken pieces. What do you do with things that break? Yeah. Yeah. Generally, what happens when people break things or when things are broken, we just discard it. You throw it away. Some would say kick it literally to the curb, take it out of your house. If it's too big to fit in the garbage bag, you just sit it on the curb. But you know what happens in Memphis, and I think other places in the nation, if you look around after you sit it on the curb, before the garbage man can come and pick it up, you generally see a truck or a van or a car or somebody walking down the street, see what you've discarded, and look through your trash to find their treasure. Amen. When things break, our things, we discard them. But there's somebody that can find usage for what we thought was useless. There's a show on TV called Sanford and Son. And Fred G. Sanford and his son Lamont have what we call a junk yard. They will go around and find stuff and have it in the house, in the yard. People will walk through and find stuff they want to buy. We got a place in Memphis called You Pull It. Meaning if your car breaks down and you don't have the money to go to AutoZone to get a good part, or you don't have the money to go to the dealership and get a good part, or it's something that's so small you don't really want to go try to find, you go to the salvage yard and take the piece off of somebody else's broken car to make your car complete. Meaning there's some value in broken things. Tamala Man got a song, Take Me to the King. Take me to the King. My heart is torn in pieces. It's my offering. Lay me at the throne. Leave me there alone. Her offering to God is her broken heart. But see, in humanity, we decide when things are broken, they no longer have use. We got to be careful because God uses broken pieces. What do you mean? I'm so glad you asked. If you look in the book of Acts, chapter 27, I'm going to pick up in the bottom, but I'm going to just tell you the beginning of it to get you to where we're going. Paul used to be called Saul and was transformed or saved and became a messenger of God to send the message of salvation to the Gentiles. After Paul's conversion, who was once a murderer of the people of the way, since he was now a Christian, folks, first of all, didn't believe him. But then when they began to believe him, he began to be a soldier, and he won many souls, planting churches all over the land. And then Paul gets to the point where he's put in prison because what he's doing is going against the Jewish church, and they want to kill him. But since he's a Roman citizen, he can appeal to Caesar, which he does. And when he appeals to Caesar, nothing can happen to him before he goes to see Caesar. Stops by King Agrippa, and he persuades Agrippa to become, he said, if I didn't know no better, you would have persuaded me to become a Christian. But since you've petitioned to see Caesar, I got to send you on the Rome. Paul gets ready to get on the ship with the people, and he's on the ship, and he tells the people early on, he says, don't sail this way because the storm is coming. And it's not only going to damage the ship, it's going to damage some people. But since it was the winter time, they didn't think Paul knew what he was talking about, so they sailed anyway. The centurion, who Paul says don't sail, decides to sail anyway. And as they're sailing along the ship, they run into what is called a Euroclydon. Some would say the perfect storm. It was a storm that didn't generally happen during that season, but it caught them off guard. And in the middle of the storm, people begin to panic. But Paul gets up and tells them, I got to go see Caesar. There will be no loss of life, but we will lose the ship. They keep on traveling. They start fasting. And about 14 days into the fast, the ship gets ready to be shipwrecked. And when the things are going crazy and people are starting to panic, verse 22, I know it's not in your notes, but in 22, Paul tells the people, he says, I start in 21, but after a long abstinence, Paul stood forth in the midst of them and said, sirs, You should have hearkened unto me and not have loosed from Crete, meaning you shouldn't have sailed in the first place. And not, excuse me, and to have gained this harm and loss. And I now exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you but the ship. Everybody gonna make it, the ship gonna crash. For there stood by me this day, this night, the angel of God, whose I am and whom I serve, saying, fear not, Paul, thou must be brought before Caesar. And lo, God have given thee all them that sail with thee. You got to get to see Caesar, and everybody's life is going to be saved. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God. You have to get to the place, ladies and gentlemen, where no matter what it looks like, you decide you believe God. Not the circumstance, not what folks have said, not the lies, not the backstabbing, not your own lack of faith. You must believe God. He said, I believe God, that I shall be even as it was told to me. He said, no matter what you think, God said we're going to make it. And if God say we're going to make it, we're going to make it. I'm going to tell you right now, church, we're going to make it. I don't care what it looked like. I don't care how many devils in hell try to stop it. I don't care how many Negroes try to bad mouth it. When they get through talking, I believe God. And we're going to make it because he already told me we would. And after this happens, Paul then gets up and starts to tell the people, we've been fasting for 14 days. Men on the boat begin to get scared. And they begin to drop anchor. Trying to jump off the ship because it starts to get ready to get shipwrecked. They start counting down how close they are to the bank. And as they get nervous and get afraid, Paul says in verse 31, Paul said to the centurion, the same man that wouldn't listen, that said sail anyway, he says to the centurion and to the soldiers, except these abide in the ship, you cannot be saved. Meaning if one person get off this ship, nobody gonna make it. We all gotta stay together. We got to be careful, y'all. We all got to stay. We can't pick and choose who on the ship. They on the ship. They stay on the ship. We can't get frustrated. Can't get mad. Can't get upset and say, you know what? You don't deserve. You don't belong. You got to. No, everybody got to stay on the ship if you want the ship. And if you want the people to make it, hell, if you want to make it, they got to stay on the ship. If you want to make it, that Verse 32. Then the soldiers cut off their rope from the boat. I mean, they weren't jumping no more. And let her fall off. And while the day was coming on, Paul besought them to take meat, saying, this day is the 14th day. Ye have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing. Wherefore I pray you to come, take some meat, for this is for your health. For there shall not a hair fall from any head of you. He said, I know we've been fasting for 14 days. Let's break the fast because everybody gonna make it. Then he goes on to tell them, and when he had thus spoken, he took bread and gave thanks to God in the presence of them all. And when he had broken it, he began to eat. Then were they all of good cheer. And they also took some meat. Ain't it amazing how when you get your belly full, you get happy? They've been fasting for 14 days, and then Paul breaks the bread. Now they about to shipwreck. They know the ship about to crash. But since Paul said they're going to be all right and said, let's eat. Now everybody happy. If you was riding down the road and you knew that the bridge was out and your brakes had gone out, but somebody had said, the Lord had said, you're going to make it through the accident. If you took a sip of your Coke, would you be of good cheer? Because even though God didn't promise you you're going to make it, you still finna have a wreck. You're going to be all right in the wreck, but you still got to crash. I don't think in my Holy Ghost mind I would have been happy. I don't think I could have been celebrating the fact I'm finna have a shipwreck. And verse 37, we were all in the ship, 216 souls. For those that don't know that math, there was 276 people were on the ship. And when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and cast out the wheat into the sea. It was a cargo ship they were on, and they were throwing other things away to make the ship lighter. So when it did crash, it wouldn't crash so hard. Verse 39. And when it was day, They knew not the land. They didn't crash. But they discovered a certain creek with a shore into the which they were minded, if it were possible, to thrust the ship. Instead of crashing where they were going to crash, they found a better place to land. And when they had taken up the anchors, they committed themselves unto the sea. That means they started going that way and loosed the rudder bands. The rudders were what dropped in the land, in the water, to turn the ship a certain way. They dropped the rudders into the land to turn the ship and hoisted up the mainsail to the wind and made toward shore. They found where they're going. They dropped the rudders and started heading in that direction. And falling into the place where two seas met, they ran the ship aground. They crashed. And the foremost part struck fast, and remained unmovable. But the hinder part was broken with the violence of the waves. Ship hit the wall, hit the sand, and when it hit the sand, the front part didn't break. But where they were, the waves beat up on it so bad that the back of the ship broke. And the soldiers' counsel was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. Roman rule was, if you were over prisoners and the prisoner escaped, you were going to die. The soldier that let the prisoner escape would be put to death for letting the prisoner escape. But Paul had already told them, ain't nobody going to lose their life. Paul has already told them, everybody got to make it. Paul has already spoken from the words of God to the centurion who was over the people to say, everybody got to make it or nobody will. The soldiers were told to go ahead and kill the prisoners. Verse 43. But the centurion is the same one that didn't listen to Paul in the first place. Now all of a sudden he got his mind right, because what Paul's saying making sense. But the centurion, willing to save Paul, not to worry about nobody. The centurion wanted to say, Paul, you can be saved by association if you associate with the right people. So many people miss the mark because they don't want to hook up with folk that's hooked up to the Lord. You want to hook up with the scoundrel. Want to hook up with the scoundrel. Want to hook up with the one that look like they got it going on, but they ain't connected to the power source. Your battery gonna run down, baby. If you ain't hooked up to the power, eventually you gonna die. But the centurion, willing to save Paul, I don't want you to miss that. We got to be careful who we associate with. You hanging around knuckle-ass niggas, it ain't going to get nothing. You going to get nothing. And then be mad when don't nothing come back. How you mad when you... Never mind. But the centurion, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose. Nope, you can't kill nobody. And commanded that they which could swim should cast themselves first into the sea and get to land. Not only is he not worried about them escaping, he said, if you can swim, bro, hop in the water. I'm going to loose your band so you can swim. I'm going to free you from bondage so you can swim, because I believe what the man of God is saying, that we all going to make it. And if I let you die, well, none of us make it. He had faith even though he was not a believer. He had seen some stuff that made him realize Paul must have been connected. And since he realized Paul must have been connected, he wasn't going to go against what the man of God had told him, because everybody got to be saved. You couldn't pick and choose who got to. But the centurion, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose and commanded that they which could swim should cast them first into the sea and get to land. Verse 44. And the rest, that's the one that can't swim. That's me. But the rest, and some on broken pieces of the ship. Somebody say broken. Some on broken pieces of the ship. The swimmers could swim, but the one that couldn't swim, he said, hold on to something broken. Hold on to something that don't have no value. Hold on to something that other people going to see worthless, because that worthless thing is going to save your life. The thing that has no value, the thing that people don't see any worth in. And it came to pass that they all escaped, all safe to land. Those that could swim, swam on. Those that couldn't swim, grabbed on to a broken piece and the broken piece took them to the promise. I'm going to tell you now, ladies and gentlemen, the broken pieces in your life that you think ain't worth nothing. I know you frustrated because the devil think he got you. You think you're losing because things are breaking. Grab on to the broken pieces to get you to your promise. The broken piece shouldn't be discarded. It should be held on to tightly. We got to stop throwing away stuff that's broken because we don't think it got value. Because it will indeed be what saves you. The broken piece of the ship saved everybody on the ship because those that couldn't swim didn't have no hope. But they have to worry about not being able to swim. They had to grab on to a broken piece. God gave them what they needed to make it, even if it was something other people didn't see having value. We got to be careful, church, that we don't let the world tell us what has value and what has worth. Don't let the world dictate how we operate moving forward. We got to do what God say. If we ain't going to do all of it, we can't do none of it. Yeah, we got to learn. It's hard. I heard a preacher tell me one time, it's tight, but it's right. We got to learn how to hold on to broken pieces. I got some stuff broken in my life right now. And instead of throwing it away, I'm holding on. If you go in my garage, you're going to find a piece of this and a piece of that and a piece of this. Because I figure one day I'm going to find a purple. You ain't got to go to my house. You can go right outside. We got to put something out there that ain't got no value to some folks. But if you give me long enough, if you give me time, I'm going to find a use for it. Just give me a little while. Because the need going to rise when exactly what I thought I didn't need going to be right there. You know what's so funny? You ever had something that break in the house, you try to fix it, and you know you had a piece somewhere? Then you go looking for the piece and remember, oh, I was cleaning up. And when I was cleaning up, I threw that thing away because I didn't think it had no value. But later you find that if you hadn't thrown it away, the thing you discarded was the very thing you're going to need. Hold on to broken pieces. Hold on to the broken pieces. Ooh, if you ain't got no use for them right now, find a place to store them. Find a place to put them. Yeah, because eventually it may have some value. You'd be surprised. Yeah. That's my message for you today. God can use, not can he? No, God uses broken pieces. You know what's so funny? When he decided to use you, he couldn't use you till he broke you. He couldn't use you in your normal state because your normal state was a sinner. You had to be saved by grace. Grace came because you were broken and needed salvation. And since you needed salvation, he saved the broken you, created a new you that could be and walk right, talk right, do right, and hopefully go and save somebody else. He uses the broken things. Bible also tells us in Psalm 119 that God is nigh to them that have a broken spirit. God is close to the broken hearts. That's where he lives. Don't be ashamed of your brokenness. Because what happens when God heals your broken place, that's stronger than the last time. Because the scar, the tissue, you ever been cut? Some of y'all been cut. I know Miss Jolene got a several of them. You look on where the cut was, you see a scar. And the skin is tougher. I know you ain't laughing because you got some on too. Yeah, the scar is tougher than your normal skin because the body won't allow you to be hurt the same place the same way. It's going to protect you from the same injury. If the Lord got enough sense to make your skin tough in some places, what do you do with your soul? Ladies and gentlemen, if I don't tell you nothing else before I get out of this earth, know that God uses broken pieces. You gotta be careful what we throw away, y'all. Because the very thing you throw away today will be what you need tomorrow. I learned that one the hard way. Threw away some stuff that I could have had use for. Then get mad at yourself for throwing it away. But at the time, it didn't seem valuable. At the time, it seemed useless. But we work in time. God don't. I can ramble on all day. I'm going to stop because I'm feeling my help. And God is an amazing God that loves all his children. If we are Christian, we got to love his children too. It may not look right. It may not sound. It may go against common sense. It's supposed to. If it don't go against common sense, it's your sense. If it's your sense, it ain't God's. Bible says his thoughts are not your thoughts, his ways not your ways. For his thoughts are higher than your thoughts, his ways much higher than your ways. We got to operate on God's time with God's call to do God's purpose, and then God will bless you for doing his work. God don't bless you for doing your work. Your work gonna reward itself with your hands. If I plant some peas in the backyard and water them right, I'm gonna get some peas from the backyard. But if I need some help that I ain't got no ability to make, then I pray to God and God send it to me. It ain't got nothing to do with me. That's His power working. I'm set. I'm through.